Throughout Earth's history, extinction-level events have shaped the fate of countless species. From before the reign of the dinosaurs to catastrophic impacts, our Earth's history is shaped by relentless threats and worldwide resets, and humanity will be the next species to face extinction if we don't do anything about it. This is why we are in a race against time to make our species multi-planetary. Once we have hundreds of human colonies scattered throughout the cosmos, we can rest assured that the Earth and the human species will be safe. But to get to those hundreds of thousands of colonies spread across the universe, we first need a ship. And that's why in this video we're going to be delving into the revolutionary project that is SpaceX's Starship, humanity's key to our survival. This rocket, currently being developed in Boca Chica, Texas, is the biggest rocket that's ever been made. Starship is a colossal spacecraft, designed for complete reusability quickly. Once operational, it's said that this vehicle is supposed to launch up to 3 times per day. That is crazy. Prototypes of this are being tested as we speak right now, with 2 successful test launch attempts in the past year, one happening just last week. These tests did, however, end in a fiery explosion, but they were supposed to. These are just designed to gather data and see what we can improve on in the next rocket. This is what's called iterative design, making adjustments on the fly to see what works and what doesn't so the next rocket can launch within the matter of weeks. This is something that NASA has never done before. NASA makes sure everything works perfectly with their rockets before even testing or launching them, so that they don't end up wasting millions of dollars in fiery explosions. But that's not how you develop a rocket if you want to do it in 5 years. This takes NASA years to develop their rockets, while it takes SpaceX and other launch providers only half that time because of this revolutionary design technique. With each successful launch and landing attempt, we inch closer to a future where humans are stepping on other planets. Elon Musk said his plan to colonize Mars will take over 6,000 starships and about 1 million people to make the colony self-sustaining, which may sound like a lot, but currently they're underway building a factory which is set to produce 1 starship every single day. At that rate, it would take a little over 18 years to have that many starships to be able to fly to Mars. But on a 25 to 50 year timescale, that sounds pretty reasonable, and it's an amazing goal that will unite all of humanity. And to get through the bottleneck of making 6,000 ships, they can always just send the ones that landed on Mars back to Earth. But for that to happen, we would need to build a rocket fuel factory on Mars, which is actually something NASA has been working on. For the first time ever 2 months ago, NASA's rover on Mars was able to produce enough oxygen for a small dog to stay alive for like 7 hours. But the oxygen isn't for humans and animals to breathe. It's a main key ingredient used in rocket fuel, and if we're going to want to return home, it's going to take a lot of it. Just for Starship to get into orbit, it uses about almost all of its fuel, which means it'll take 2 to 4 tanker ships to refuel the ship in orbit to make the 7-month journey to Mars. But this will easily become reality once we install tanking refueling stations just orbiting around the Earth, Moon, and Mars. So once you leave the Earth's atmosphere, you might make a quick stop on the Moon to fuel up, and then you're on your way to Mars. SpaceX's Starship is designed to accommodate over 100 passengers and carry over 150 tons to orbit, which is more than any rocket has ever done before. It'll also be the cheapest rocket ever to fly, costing a mere $4 million compared to NASA's SLS system that costs $4 billion each launch, which is crazy because both of these rockets are currently being developed at the same time, yet there's a $3 billion price difference between each of them. NASA really shit the bed building SLS, but that's a separate video. SpaceX also last decade built the cheapest rocket to ever fly, which is currently flying right now, Falcon 9. What they did to reduce price drastically compared to competitors is they made the bottom stage of this rocket reusable, which means it flies up, dispatches its payload, and then returns to Earth, landing safely to be relaunched again. This saves SpaceX billions of dollars. Falcon 9 has already flown over 281 flights, with just 17 of them being on one single booster being reused. That means this rocket launched into space, landed safely back on Earth, and then they did that 16 more times for it to refly. Something that has never been done ever. Starship, on the other hand, will be a completely reusable rocket, which means its first and second stage will be able to land back safely on Earth to be reused again. They want to get the process down so good it only takes them hours to minutes to refuel, restack, and get the ship ready to launch again. This is the reason interplanetary travel is going to become possible. Because instead of costing $4 billion per ticket to ride on a rocket, it'll now only start to cost hundreds of thousands to just tens of thousands of dollars. Musk wants the first humans to step foot on Mars by 2029 and have a self-sustaining civilization by 2050, which means if something happened on Earth and we couldn't send any more rockets, meaning the Mars colony would have to thrive and prosper without any help. But is this really possible? The third orbital flight of Starship is scheduled for the first quarter of 2024, which is in the next 2 to 3 months. And by this time next year, they wanted to start delivering payloads to space without any issues. So maybe humans on Mars by 29? Possibly. It's a good estimate. Like, it's not gonna happen in 2025, but 2029? You know, maybe. But making our species multi-planetary can't be done by just one company. We need help. SpaceX is collaborating with NASA and other launch providers, combining resources and knowledge to propel us towards a future where humans become interplanetary pioneers. It's better we have many companies working on this than just one government agency, like it's been done for the past 60 years. NASA was able to get to the moon in the 60s, but since then we've had a slow, sharp decline of launch capabilities. And there's a point in the 2000s where NASA retired their space shuttle. America didn't even have a rocket. We had to rely on the Russians for rockets to get us to space. Luckily, private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin have stepped in to fill this role and get America back into low Earth orbit. Despite its legacy, NASA has really struggled with reusable rockets. SpaceX has set a new standard of achieving what was once thought impossible. The reusable Falcon 9 is launching every 4 days this year. And next year, it's scheduled to launch every 2.5 days. Things just keep speeding up, and pretty soon, with Starship, we are going to see 1 to 5 to 10 launches of a rocket per day. Now, as far as big goals go, they also come with even bigger challenges, which I'm sure we will figure out before we actually send any of our star sailors on their voyage, such as the 7-month journey through deep space being bombarded by cosmic radiation left and right. No human has ever experienced that before. Yes, some people have lived on the International Space Station for over a year, but that's still in low enough orbit that it's protected by the magnetic field of the Earth. We don't know what's going to happen if you send somebody away from the Earth's magnetic field and just have them being bombarded with radiation for 7 months. But there are things we can do to prevent that, like radiation shielding and such. Mars also has 100 times less atmosphere and magnetic field than the Earth, so that also leaves our astronauts exposed to excess radiation when they get to their new home. But we can always build our houses underground or in these little mound shapes, which should prevent most of the radiation from attacking us. We can even send robots on Mars first to get started on building these houses before we even get there. But there is no plan currently on a return trip to Mars. If you get homesick or hate it there, you're just gonna have to suck it up, because you're stuck on a rock that's 140 million miles away from the Earth. We have to figure out a way to manufacture everything we make here on Earth, but on Mars, which includes food, rocket fuel, metal, plastic, a bunch of other things that you need to be able to make if you want your colony to be self-sustaining. What I mean by this is if you're building a new lab and you need a brand new chair, how do you expect to make a chair in Mars? Don't know. That's why we're trying to figure this thing out. But with all of those problems, our biggest one right now is building a big enough rocket to take us all the way to Mars, which we're on the verge of solving. The Earth throughout its years has gone through many ages, and this one is no different. There have been 5 mass extinctions in history, wiping out over 99% of all life on this planet. The question isn't if we will be annihilated like all the species that came before us. It's a matter of when. And saying that doesn't even include the damage we're doing to our own planet. Pollution, overpopulation, nuclear winter, those are all very real things. By colonizing other celestial bodies like the Moon and Mars and even beyond, we will be able to secure the survival of our species. SpaceX's ambition is beyond exploration. It's about building self-sustaining colonies and ensuring Earth's survival for millions of years to come. It's a race against our own extinction.